everyone. Welcome to Taqueando. I'm your host, Bill Esparza. And today I am talking with my dear friend and LA Times restaurant critic, Bill Addison. But first, at Taqueando, eating antojitos is a way of life, from the world's most celebrated dining rooms to the gritty stands and storied market stalls that preserve culture. Life is short, so we must eat well. And here are this week's Antojitos Rundown. I made a quick trip to Popotla, a place I go often. I'm a seafood lover. Seafood is my favorite cuisine. I don't care from where, but as long as that country has a fresh seafood tradition of some sort, I'm always going to love it. But even cooked seafood, I love that too. So I went to Popotla, and of course, our favorite dish to have in Popotla always is the marciano, the spider crab, which is deep fried in lard. Already sounds good, right? And you get the size of crab depending on your party. So I was there with just one other person. So we had a nice spider crab for two with salsa a la diabla. A longtime favorite in Popotla is Mariscos La Estrella. There are several others, but this one is outstanding always. And the spider crab, I always ask for them to do it nice and, suave. I don't want them to overcook the crab, which is a tendency in Latin American seafood cooking. A lot of people like it that way. That's fine. That's not a problem for you to cook it that way. But I like it a little bit more smooth. And I love the claws are taken apart. That joint meat is the best. It's so sweet. It comes with flour tortillas, a little bit of refried beans and Mexican rice. I tear pieces of tortilla. I put the crab and the beans and the rice in there. Some salsa from the table. It is one of my favorite dishes, but my order there is the spider crab. Again, you got to have the flour tortillas. Cocktail de rizo. So always get the sea urchin cocktail. Ask if they have sea urchin. I don't think it's actually on the menu, but they'll do it for you, and you won't believe how inexpensive it is. And yes, I'm somebody who lives in LA saying that it's inexpensive. Well, that would be the case anytime you're near a source, right? It's cheaper to get sea urchin in Santa Barbara than in Cato. So don't be stupid. All right. And I also always get, you always want to get a clam there. They either have chocolata clams, reina clams, pismo. So get one of the clams. You can have it natural au gratin. Those are sort of the appetizers I'll have before the spider crab arrives. And also, they have Mexican wine there. There's only one Mexican winery I think you can get. No, there's actually a couple, but the Magoni wines are there. I know that. So I think their Vermentino from Casa Magoni is available, and there's some other wines by the can. So wine and crab. They also do a great pescado zarandeado if you want to try that. But anything is great there. So get everything at Mariscos La Estrella. And I also had another quick stop in Tijuana. And one of my favorite carne asada places in the world is Tacos El Vaquero in Tijuana. And I think they might have a second branch opened up in downtown Tijuana. But they're located next to Las Ahumaderas, which is a very, very popular long-time row of taquerias that do carne asada and adobada Tijuana style. But El Vaquero is Sonora style. The only difference is they do offer corn tortillas for the locals because Tijuanenses really love their corn tortillas. But I always order it with flour tortillas and the salsas. There's over a dozen salsas and condiments, amazing different chiles and spice levels, and there's a creamy habanero that I always put on, and of course there's the standards like cabbage and salsa bandera, which we usually call pico de gallo over here in Los Angeles, salsa bandera, all kinds of great salsas. But I love building my tacos there. That take your time, blend your salsas, and the steak is amazing. It's high quality, thick cut steak that's sliced, not chopped. They don't butcher it into bits like they do in most parts of Tijuana, which is the Tijuana style, but they rather slice it, nice little chunks of picanha and rib and ribeye. Go to El Vaquero. There is no better carne asada place in Tijuana. Okay, I did say it. The best carne asada in Tijuana is from Sonora. And for bites that I have yet to eat, well, I've been going to Fauna for many, many years, ever since they first opened. I was actually at the inauguration of the winery before they even had the restaurant. So I've been around there since the beginning. But at the beautiful, luxurious El Encanto Resort, Fauna is going to be there. So Fauna's chef David Castro Husang and Maribel Aldaco Silva will bring their boundary pushing Baja spirit to El Encanto for a singular pop up dinner on Saturday, December the 13th. And they're going to be there along with Vinos Boutique founder Güero Cham. Güero Cham is a friend of the podcast. And the evening is going to feature wines from Mexico and the incredible Valle de Guadalupe cuisine of the Fauna chefs, Chef David and Chef Maribel. They are consistently ranked among the top 50 restaurants in the world on the Latin America 50 Best. They have wonderful ingredients. And I think that Fauna is doing better work than they've ever done right now. So, hey, it's not often that a restaurant of this caliber comes to town. So let's all go to Santa Barbara. I'll see you up there this Saturday. Now, here's Bill. Look at him. So this is his second full day of everyone knowing what he looks like. Last night at the 101 Best Restaurants event at the Hollywood Palladium, which was a great party, by the way. You have to go if you never, go next year if you didn't make it this year. But he revealed his identity. He showed up in person. And of course, yesterday morning, his photo came out along with his story in the LA Times. Bill, how does it feel to be seen?
It feels weird and surreal. And I don't know how else to say it. I'm still searching for the words. Anonymity and the pretext of anonymity has been my identity for over 23 years. And so I'm just
23 years.
Yeah, I'm just figuring out what it'll be like to post pictures of myself or appear on podcasts. I don't know. It's all and it's odd, right?
When's the first selfie coming?
Good question, man. I don't know when I get busted.
Maybe you're not ready for that.
I don't think I'm ready for
Maybe
that.
You're not ready for that.
Yes, I'm still clinging to Helen Rosner said when we were at Eater that all the food pics we take are really selfies, and I clung tightly to that. So
yeah, it is true. Well, it's funny that is this your first podcast that you're going to come out as yourself?
This network is the first podcast. Yes, I think you're right. This is the very first one.
All right, exclusive. There he is. And he's a handsome man. And so, to me, you have not been anonymous for a long time. We've been dining for a while now. We were introduced by our mutual friend, Matt Kang, when you were at Eater. And so I've been dining with you. And it's funny that I've had to actually, in my own little territory, protect your identity, because I've had people ask me before. And I basically, I told them like in a nice way the first time. I'm like, yeah, I can't. I go. Then the second time, it's like, you know what? I'm not. Don't even ask anymore. Don't bother. It's not. You're not. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be me.
I hear that a lot. That's weird.
It's weird, right? And then another person said that, well, all the restaurants know, which is bullshit. It's like all the restaurants know, and there's people that are arguing that you're.
And some did know.
Right, some did, but yeah. I think when I was talking to this person, I said, well, like all people, like if you have a photo of Bill, it must be old, and or where you got it. But we all look different over. We change, and I see people that I know. And I see their face and I don't recognize them. So there's no way that you pass by so many restaurants and people had no idea, and we both look older than we did when we first started hanging out.
Yes, we do. A decade ago.
So
yeah, there's that as well.
A decade. It's been a decade, right?
It's a decade. Yeah.
Wow.
I think we met right in 2015. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to be watching. I want to know how this is going to affect your work. And well, I think it's, there's the whole other opportunities that come, being able to show up to a talk without putting prosthetics on.
I think that's a big part of what this is about. Yes. Is like, we are in a post prosthetic critic world, and it just feels right to join that.
Right. Both New York Times critics are out there.
Yeah. And Elazar Sontag, who just started at the Washington Post, who's just a great young talent. I'm so excited he landed in that position. And Raphael Briand, who in beautiful irony, is now the critic for the daily newspaper in the Twin Cities. And Raphael invented the "to catch a critic" rubric when Eater National was taking off. It was like they were outing critics, they were finding photos of critics and outing them. And now he's a non-anonymous restaurant critic, so at least he's had quite a journey. But most everyone is younger than we are, Bill.
Yeah,
Surviving
that's
business,
true.
and so everyone has been sharing their lives personally and professionally online for many years, and it would just be farce
Sure.
to try and scrub the internet of their images. And there are a lot of compelling reasons for not hiding your identity, and it is tricky because there's no better way to evaluate an experience, a dining experience, than not branding you a VIP needing special treatment. The goal was always to get an impression, to share experiences, to go more than once, to form a concrete opinion that would help readers feel like they have an idea of what they can expect when they go to that restaurant. And so, getting special treatment sometimes means, if you're a critic, like, you have a hard time relaying like what it's going to be like for the average person.
Yeah, I mean, I think philosophically, there's. I mean, I know why that was such a thing, but there's so many factors. There's so many parts of the restaurant that were already in motion before you got there. Some restaurants you go, they've already done their cooking.
Yeah.
You're going to Somni and all that stuff's prepared, and they're just like putting it together for you.
That's so true. It's funny because I was like, oh, you mean like love to eat Thai Express, right? It's right there on the steam table and it's delicious. But on the other end, you have Somni, and so much of that food has already been prepared that day too. So
Right. And whatever decisions they made that day, they've already done. Whatever decisions they made that week, they've. So I think there's something to be said about, like, okay, if you go into a restaurant, if they're treating you special, if they do make you, and they're sending things and they're wanting to give you extra service, you can see around you what's going on still. I mean, part of what we're there to do, right, is to look at everyone else's experience. And then if we see on
yeah,
Yelp and all these things that their service is bad, then I think we can also gauge that too. I don't think that's the only way to have the experience. And I think also in life, humans walk into places and they're VIP that are not critics.
very true. Right. And there are regulars that get a different kind of experience too, a wonderful kind of experience. Yeah.
Exactly. There are regulars that have been there, that come every week, that have been coming since the beginning, that are treated better than us, if we're made, you know. And so
Which is
those,
as
yeah,
it
I mean,
should.
those people are actually, yeah. So I think
Yeah.
I think you're going to be okay, Bill. I think you're still going to be able to, do your job. And you brought up an interesting point though by talking about all these great critics right now. I've been saying this here on the podcast that food writing is better than ever, and you certainly play your part. The LA coverage here is more broad, more in depth. There's better reporting than there ever was, beautiful writing, and the cultural knowledge and experience is vastly greater than in previous decades. Would you agree?
100%. That's part of the important evolution of food writing as a whole.
Right. I mean, I'm seeing better coverage of Los Angeles by so many different critics, and I look at, and if I look in past decades, I look at writing people that we all revere and everyone talks about, but they were missing a lot of things that we just can't miss anymore, and it's because of the culture. And so I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, about what you think of the scene right now. I'm very optimistic about it, even though there's a lot of dread in publishing, and I feel there's still better writing being done, and there's a lot of pivoting going on to make sure there's still coverage. But the other question is it that we have changed, the writers, or has the audience really changed and they demand more?
Ooh, where to dive in? These are all really, this is the meat of the matter right here. I would definitely say to work backwards that it's both in a great way. I think that you're always going to have an audience that just wants to know basically what's opening, what the hottest thing is, where they should go next. But I think as we inside food media, and by we, I also mean a lot of the change of the guard over the last 10 years,
Yeah.
especially in who is in media, who is representing food media, and let me be very clear and say, like, not as white as it used to be. Thank goodness
Yeah.
that
Thank goodness.
thank goodness, right? The impetus is to tell better stories, to contextualize all kinds of restaurants, and not just in a way to say, like, the get the tendon banh mi but not the oxtail banh mi, but to get really specific, to get like granular in a way that also reads compellingly or is communicated compellingly, because video is such a part of what even writers do these days, per the exchange that we're having right now. So, to be succinct about my point, then, as food media changes, the audience has a bigger understanding of what's possible within food media, and then they are looking for more of that. That's my hopeful take.
Right. I agree. I agree with all that. Everyone's coming to Los Angeles, right? I mean, you came before this big wave of New York critics that are here now, and which which they're all very welcome. I'm so happy to have so many people in LA.
The more the merrier. Absolutely. Yeah.
The more the merrier, absolutely. And but since you arrived, I mean, LA has changed so much, and of course, there's the pandemic and many other things that have happened since then that have transformed Los Angeles. But I want to talk about a little bit about your journey as a critic and the one charged with writing I would say, the most difficult restaurant list in the world. Well,
Thank you.
I'm gonna well, definitely the most difficult restaurant list in the United States, but we could make it world too, because LA is so diverse. It's a duty you now share with columnist Jen Harris. So why is LA such a challenging city and region to cover when compared to other major cities?
Because we have the world here, simply put, right? There's so much diversity. There are so many immigrant communities layered into what Los Angeles means, that it is our imperative to present something to readers, viewers, that from year to year encompasses what it means to eat and live in Los Angeles.
Yeah. I've been to New York. I've been to Chicago. I've been to every major city in the United States, and I've done this thing where I'm not okay. Am I bringing my bias here about LA
Mm.
being so diverse? And I've thought about this many times, and I'm like, New York obviously is very diverse, but what I think is another difference that I don't know if you thought about is that the cuisines that are strong here have a lot of subregions. So you
Yes.
have like Mexican
There,
cuisine, and you have Chinese, and you have Korean. And so let's just say, again, I'm a huge, huge fan of Dominican cuisine, and I love it. And it's what I want to have when I go to New York.
mhm.
It's so fun to be in those neighborhoods and be in Washington Heights. But Dominican cuisine, it's a small island. It doesn't have a small part of an island, and it doesn't have all the different regional variations, which that's not important. But and none, who cares? I mean, the food's delicious. Delicious food is delicious food. But
Okay.
as a writer, having to know the difference between maybe 12 different Chinese regions as you're doing this list, several regions of Mexico, half of Mexico is represented here at any given time, half of its
Yes.
32 regions. And then the breadth and the depth of Koreatown, and the Vietnamese Westminster Vietnamese scene. It just goes on and on and on. I think it's really been that for me is the subregions that make it a little more complex than say New York.
Complex, but also for me, it's the great joy of Los Angeles, and
Yeah,
it's the sustaining factor for me as a restaurant critic in Los Angeles. I am never going to be bored here. And the fun of doing this list every year is to be considering, like, even if I'm not explicitly saying it, and even if, it's too subtle, like Jen and I, when I write these things solo, when I wrote the California 101 list solo this year after traveling off and on for a year and a half, like, I put a lot of effort into the writing, which maybe is a stupid thing to do because people just want to see the names and know the cuisine and keep moving. But I put a lot of effort into it because I do see these subtle things, right? Like, there was such an influx of Sichuan cooking last decade in the San Gabriel Valley, and now something else is happening, right? There's a little bit, like, there's even a kind of a renaissance of Cantonese food happening
right.
in a way that that has moved away from the big banquet halls, the big kind of dim sum palaces, and are doing kind of smaller, more specific things. And you can say that about everything. You can say that about, like,
Right.
where, and some of us, like you, specialize in that, and some of us, by the nature of our jobs, are generalists who have to keep up, and that is part of the rich challenge of this job, where I am like, I obviously don't have the depth of experience, of direct experience in Mexican cuisines, plural, that you have, though I make it my business to know as much as I possibly can and to travel as much as I can, particularly to these places that are so intrinsic to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, once you've had so much of this experience, it's not hard to jump into an area and kind of get your IQ up on that cuisine. But there's really no such thing when you're talking about a food critic today. They're not really a generalist. They're a generalist with several specialties. They're like Delta Force, right? It's like you could write. You have to be a great writer, and that is the most important part. And you are right to be putting so much into that. Writing is the most important part, but you also have to specialize in many cuisines. If you live in Los Angeles, you cannot ignore, the knowledge of Korean cuisine. You have to look into it. You're especially these days.
Absolutely. And I guess,
Yeah,
yeah. And by generous, I'm just saying that, like, I guess it's my job to know a lot about a lot. And, I take a lot of pleasure in learning, but I also feel a lot of responsibility to get things right, to understand.
yeah, and I mean, and you're doing a great job at that. And again, I think what a lot of it's wonderful to be reminded constantly by yourself, Ligaya, Tejol, Jeff, is that the writing is so important. And we're fighting against a world that doesn't want, like you said, doesn't want to read. They want to just like, what's the best, man? You know, and it's a very whiny,
Yeah.
bitchy world, right?
I just want, I trust, I'm always trusting that people are going to come back to reading. Maybe that's just really naive, but I'm so grateful to have a job where primarily it's about writing, and I'm never going to stray from that.
No, and I don't think I don't think I know it's better right now. But so we're in this age where every diner is online, obsessively trolling, whining, arguing, and there's all these palate bros out there flexing their fine dining credentials because they have the money to go out and eat. They think because they eat food that they are also critics. And so, how do you tune all that out and stay inspired and focused on taking on a list like this it's very hard to do. And again, this is my favorite list you've ever done.
Ooh,
And I think you're only getting better at it.
thank you. That's the goal. That is the goal. And I'm not a complacent person, So I hope that I hope people find it useful. That's the number one thing.
I find it. I mean, I was going through it, and I'm like, you know what? There's places that have been on my list, but now I'm more like, okay, I'm hearing good things from you now, and many other people that I'll get to there at some point. So these people that are out there, like I said, in
Mm.
Ruth Reichel didn't have to deal with this stuff, of people going in online and going crazy, and every single person having an opinion about it or what they think the list. Do you think it's healthy, this kind of conversation, and does it help what you're trying to do, or is it just part of the problem that we have today with everybody being online?
Yeah, I think it's just part of the reality. I'm always going to lean diplomatic, Bill Esparza. So do I love hate comments? Of course not. And I guess I should say I'm really fascinated by people in different generations, in younger generations who are online and who court hate because hate gets
Right.
clicks, right? So they have
Sure.
developed um, a brain, literally just a functioning life where they're amused by it, where they're just like, hell yeah, but did I get this many clicks to generate this much income or to lead people to this path which is making me money? That's their path. That's not my path.
No.
I will say, a failing, it feels like, of mine is that I'm not on social media more these days because I blocked it out. I've kind of just started blocking that out more, but I should just be posting food more. I should just be leading people to good food more in that way. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, I think with the face reveal, and again, not with selfies necessarily of me like chomping into a hobosh taco, but just I'm gonna try and use it to reset, to even just post more, to just shine lights on the great businesses that we have in Los Angeles. But one thing that you kind of said earlier that's taking me back is, I think a lot in the midway point of this decade, Bill, about how it's been a challenging decade for Los Angeles.
Oh, it has.
And even when before I moved here in 2018, we met because I was Eater's national critic and I was traveling here a lot. And that's partly because, it started because of Besha Rodell, who is one of my best friends, and we were both in Atlanta. Besha got the job at LA Weekly when Jonathan Gold moved to the Times, and I wanted to just come hang out with Besha. But in that, which was happening before I got the Eater job in spring 2014, I was like, this place, oh my God, it's endless. And not only was it endless, but there was this emerging thing that's now so much a part of the culture here and elsewhere, but that felt so novel at the time, where it was all these chefs cooking their personal narrative, right? Kind of owning themselves in whatever form they wanted to put out there. And obviously that, Roy Choi is part of that lineage, and Gorilla Tacos is part of that lineage. And I was just so amazed at how it wasn't just that they were doing it, but then when you married it to how good the ingredients are out
Right.
here, and the sense of permissive creativity which just comes from the culture of Los Angeles, from people who live in a in an entertainment industry town, which lends itself to a certain open-mindedness or experimentativeness, to make up a word.
Yeah.
And so I was coming here, when I got the job at Eater to travel the country, they were like, you can make your own schedule. They were very
Yeah.
they gave me a lot of bandwidth. And the first place I came was Los Angeles. I came straight here without question because I was so excited about what was going on, and I was so certain 2 years into that job that Los Angeles was the most exciting food city in America.
And it still is. And you came.
And it still is. And I think maybe it's either because I'm on the ground. I think it's also because I'm on the ground, but also just with the decade we've had so far, it's also people are really struggling.
Yeah.
They're struggling in ways that I wasn't aware of last decade when it felt sort of more like in the hopeful LA ascendance, like a financial viability was part of that ascendance. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And I feel that feels a lot more challenging for people in the industry now as I see and hear it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are coming to head right now, you know, with the things you're talking about. When you first came here in the teens, LA was on fire. There were restaurants opening left and right. A lot of great restaurants. But then the pandemic hits, and all the things that have happened from then till now. But 2025 has turned LA into a hellscape with wildfires, the ice raids, the all these crazy unpredictable tariffs, the rising costs of food and utilities, healthcare costs going through the roof, and generally horrible federal policies for that affect the food. I mean, affecting everyone, but especially that affect
All that.
farmers and these small restaurants, right? But yet the list kind of gives me a little hope. Your 101 list is that there's a lot of new restaurants still opening that are doing great, and yes, they're dealing with challenges that they didn't have before. But I have to say that I was looking at the list and I was thinking, well, there's actually a lot of restaurants that are pretty new right now that are very exciting, and I've been to some of them and people are going there. I mean, it's something.
Well, that moves me. Thank you, because I would say we all could use hope right now. And Jen and I invested a lot thinking about hope because it's what I started to say earlier. It's so painful to be a journalist in this sense, to be an observer, a recorder, and to not like I don't want my favorite taco truck in Echo Park to have disappeared and gone into catering mode because they're afraid for their lives. And I don't, I don't want to see, a dining room that I love 50% emptier than I hope it will be. And so it's funny because making these lists is all about the investment in the research, the like just kind of going crazy dining and again, it's a responsibility and a privilege to have a budget that allows me to do these things with so many journalists don't have these days.
Yeah.
And yet it always kind of comes together organically. It's very intentional, but at the same time, I'm not like masterminding, a specific feeling. But Jen and I particularly like we can just talk about it, like the number one that we chose for the list this year. We feel it's Mercado La Paloma. It's the whole place. It's not just Hobosh or Comal, which are I'll just say as a critic, the two most excellent places in the Mercado La Paloma,
Yeah.
but it's the whole special place and what makes that place and what that place is in the community. That it's the arm of an organization that also invests in housing in historic South Central, that invests in healthcare for the local community there, and it's an organism that is it feels hopeful to be in the Mercado, doesn't it?
Right. And it's got a vibe. I mean, there's people lined up to eat, and they're, and yes, it's become more interesting. What's fascinating for me is that, I've obviously been going to the Mercado La Paloma for many years, but it used to be more of like an insider thing. The people that were fans of Chichen Itza would go and they
Yeah.
would talk about it like that's where you have to go, and it was a cool place to hang out. And there are several other mercados. There's the Mercadito in East LA. There's that strange one that I really love down in Linwood that has like statues, the angel of independence down there, and it's trying to replicate sort of a Jalisco style mercado. And but this one, it I would say that Hold Bosch changed it a lot, but I feel like Comal was the final key to the whole thing by having a molino,
Yeah.
like a molino inside a
Yeah.
mercado in a city where the landlord isn't trying to screw them over because they're successful. And there, like you said, there's all these hope. It is a place of hope. And I would say that Mercado La Paloma is the best of what LA could be
Amen, brother.
if
I completely agree.
the right people are in charge of your rent, and the right people are working there, and the right restaurants are supporting each other, and the community's coming out, and they're not being overly fussy about weights and all these things, that they're giving this place life, and they're making it relevant, and they're and it's even improved Baja California, which was now it's in its second generation, and they've like improved their decor. They've been working on their plates, so they've stepped up their
Yep,
game.
absolutely.
It's a perfectly amazing place.
Perfectly amazing place. And I do a quasi obnoxious thing sometimes where like if I see people looking impatient in the Hobosh line, I might just like casually walk by and be like, there's like a nearly equally amazing place like right across the way, and there's like two people in line. You should just go check that out. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
all glory to that Hobosh line that goes out the building and around the side of the building and along the fence of the parking lot. It's amazing that it exists, and it's great, and it's a confluence of all sorts of influences on the LA dining scene that Hobosh is such a phenomenon. But there's far more in there with a tenth of the weight that everyone should be eating.
yeah. Mercado La Paloma, LA's number one restaurant on the 101 list. I endorse that. That is a perfect number one pick.
Yay. Thank you.
Yeah. An, another thing that I think is really, I think something that you and Jen are here to witness is that we have definitely transitioned to a new guard of chefs, and to both of you as critics, the this cultural knowledge that you now hold together. And now you had written about this in your article about Los Angeles, a decade in dining timeline, decades in dining timeline.
Yeah.
And you really did this nice history of where, the restaurants that have brought us to this point. But a lot of those restaurants have closed, or the chefs have stepped out of the kitchen,
Yep.
And maybe they've done two or three restaurants and now they're out of those kitchens entirely. But there's really a new time. So are we experiencing, despite all the hell that's happening in this administration, are we experiencing a new cultural ripple?
It feels a little paradoxical given how terrible this year has been in Los Angeles to think about like also are we on a great path dining wise? But I think part of the answer is the greatness of Los Angeles is that it always allows you to look for the best. You know what I mean? To look in new directions. If it feels really dark in one place, you can look in a different corner and you can try something delicious that you have never had before. An Armenian restaurant that is serving, much homier food than the kind of flatbreads that are served in, or dumplings that are served in many Armenian restaurants, as just an example off the top of my head. So I think the great gift of Los Angeles is that there's always something around the bend that that makes you feel good about living and eating in this city. I think one of the things that is kind of hard to wrap my brain around, and maybe for people who have really struggled through this year to think about too, is it's an interesting time for fine dining, right? Like Key
It is.
in downtown Key is a restaurant that opened in January. The chef, Ki Kim, ran Kin in Koreatown, and it closed, and he regrouped and has this 10-seat tasting menu exploring modern Korean cuisine, which is really a movement this decade, I think, in
It
Los
is,
Angeles,
isn't it?
but especially in New York, right? But I think Los Angeles is finding its own innate way to it. It's not imitating New York, but it's finding like its chefs like Kwang Ah at Baru, one of my favorite chefs in the city. So Key is like just flatly fantastic. It's expensive. It's hard to get into. It's hard to get one of those 10 seats, but I'm really excited for it. Dave Barron, one of our kind of great fine dining chefs who had dialogue last decade and has Pajoli in Santa Monica, opened a tasting menu restaurant, Celine. And like I still need to get my official review thoughts down on Celine, but it opened and it needed to find its way. And Dave Barron is a very determined chef, and it found its way. It's fantastic. It's like it's kind of like California of the mind. You know, he's a very like heady guy, and it's still delicious, and you don't always like grasp the story behind what he's eating, but it flows with the seasons as it should in California, and it's just like brainy, interesting,
Yeah.
delicious food for people who like that kind of dining. And so I'm just surprised by Los Angeles that like you can never flatly say it's this, you know.
Right.
It's bleak here, it's terrible here, like everything is dying.
Yeah. If you can't find great cuisine at all levels of dining here in Los Angeles and you're gonna poo-poo it, you are dead inside.
Yes, Kosai.
It's an amazing city.
It's an amazing.
Yeah, and you know that is definitely one of the trends I see on your list is your and Jen's list is lots of Korean dining, contemporary Korean dining. But another trend that has emerged, I mean, this has been a breakthrough year for Central American and Caribbean cuisines. And you have Las Segovias, this Nicaraguan place, and Del Mis Pupusas, El Bacano, an amazing Dominican place that we both love. Simon, this modern
Both love.
Panamanian and doing modern Central American as well, Bridgetown Roadie. So I think you are both officially the first two major restaurant listers in LA to do this, to make a big deal about Central American cuisine. So I want to say first, congratulations. And I personally couldn't be happier. And so, what brought these cuisines and regions into focus this year?
I think let me just speak to myself, though I know Jen, you know, feels the same way. You're the goal in this job is always to be like, what have I missed? What have I missed? What have I missed? You know, or what is emerging? And not in that gross kind of like, what's a trend,
Right.
but what is organically like rising in this city? What is appearing here? Who is feeding their communities? You know, in ways that those communities that exist here may not have been fed in ways that are as obvious as a Koreatown or a Thai town or a San Gabriel Valley or even a little Arabia in Anaheim. And certainly finding the thread of excellence in Caribbean and Central American food is definitely percolating here. And it's exciting then to also see like what might come next.
Yeah.
You know, I hope that this is just the start. I don't think this is the crest. I hope that this is the beginning of a diverse kind of expression of those cuisines. Again, plural, 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 plural. Every one of them,
Right.
their own micro cuisines.
Yeah.
And so fun to see like what the tamale is at Las Segovias versus you know how the cuisines of Panama itself a melting pot of influences and immigrants, some who came as workers, you know, or a lot who came as workers, and how he translates that into very sophisticated, elegant
Yeah.
plates.
I had the the fortune of going there several. Yeah, I did this long layover 3 times. It's basically coming back from Brazil. You
Mm,
can do a long, like a 12-hour layover, and I did
mm.
it 3 times in Panama, and I went crazy. And I'd always dismissed that place, and I fell in love with their food. It's like it's super spicy. It's one of the two spiciest Central American countries besides
Ooh,
Belize because they use
yeah.
habaneros because they have a Mayan influence there. But Panama, they have spicy salsas and amazing cuisine and a way of eating that's really interesting to me. But I think Chef Jose is a great person to represent that cuisine here, and introduce us to it.
Yeah. I have found this far into my career even that impulse to dismiss, if I can recognize it in myself,
Right.
is actually the impetus to dig deeper.
This is the difference, my friends out there, you Cartmans of the world. They just go, man, that sucks. That's Bill. That's your competition out there. It's some dude that's online that afforded the dinner, and he's saying it sucks, and you don't know what you're talking about. But it is at that point. You're right, and I think that a lot of people think that, well, professional critics like you, they go 3 times and then by the third time, but it's often not that, isn't it? It's often you might be going to a place for years before it finally clicks with you. Do you find that sometimes?
Yeah. I mean, I do, and that's kind of it's I think for listeners of your podcast, like I think the picture is coming together that restaurant criticism is in a wild, free new place where there's less of it, right? It used to be that restaurant criticism was the daily newspaper, the alternative news weekly, and the city magazine. And you could count on a new restaurant opening, and 6 weeks after it opened, all those critics descend at once, and everyone has a quick weigh in about a restaurant that's been open for 6 weeks.
Right.
And then you don't necessarily ever hear about that restaurant again. And I mean, I feel so far from that way of thinking, and maybe those years on the road as Eater's national critic, just like it broke me of that in some ways, because I was out of the rhythm, and it is a hustle, right? It is a lot to kind of do what I'm not really doing anymore, but to do what I used to do,
Yeah.
which is like, come hell or high water, there will be a restaurant review every week, except like the 2 weeks you're on vacation a year.
Right.
So I do give myself space. Like sometimes I go to a restaurant twice that's newish, and there's just like there's no, I don't know how to say it, because a lot of this is almost me like processing it and then translating it to the page for readers. But it's like I'm not picking up a lot of juice, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they're going somewhere. It's just like splat, like this is what we've done, like take it or leave it. Like this is the restaurant. 3 months in, this is the restaurant you're gonna get.
Yeah.
So maybe I review it, 2 or 3 months in, because good or bad, that's where we are. But there are a lot of places like Kin in Koreatown that I mentioned that just became Key now, like Celine and Santa Monica. Like you go and you're like, it's not quite where it could be. Now, let me also acknowledge in the middle of all saying all this that for the average reader, which is the average diner, which is the average person, like
Yeah.
you spend, you would spend a few $100s going to Celine. And if you went this time last year, you probably would have been like, that's kind of a weird meal. And you might not want to go back. But for people who don't know, which is most people, right? We live in a bubble. So for people who want some information that feels compelling to send them to a place, it makes sense for me to wait for a year and then be like, hey, there's this place. This is the context of this restaurant. This is how you might know this chef. This is where this chef is from. I'm going to say it took a minute. I ate there over the course of a year. It got better and better every time until now, like bingo. Go ahead and splurge there. Have a special occasion meal there. You're going to be very well taken care of. You're going to have a really fun, interesting, like meal that like registers like happily on the palate. Like you're going to enjoy it, not just like, think about it. and that is the, I was about to say luxury, but maybe that's just my decision in this age now where there are
Yeah.
hardly any restaurant critics, where alt weeklies are dead, which like will break my heart forever, where city magazines don't have someone like Patrick Q,
Yeah.
who did such good restaurant criticism for so many years.
He was amazing.
Amazing.
I love Patrick Q.
Patrick Q forever. Yeah, and I miss his writing and I miss his thinking. And so we have less outlets. And so I'm going to do what feels right for me. And I love and I'm grateful for
Yeah.
editors who let me do what feels right for me to do. They don't say like, that place opened 7 weeks ago. Go write your definitive review.
No, yeah. I mean, the thing about, if you're really, forget about us writers but if you really love dining, if you really enjoy it, the first thing you should, when you leave the house, you should be thinking, I'm going to have a good time tonight. I want to have a good time tonight. You should be with somebody you want to have a good time with. That should be really the priority. And if you can afford a meal, you understand that if you can afford to dine at Celine or one of these restaurants, that you have that money, and it's not always going to be going to change your life. Hopefully you had fun that night. And then if you're really interested in what they're doing, then you'll say, you know what, I'm going to come back here because I do like what they're doing. It's just not registering on these certain things where it becomes like a real pleasurable meal. But some people come in with such a threshold because they're so upset about the fact that they've spent a night. I think that's the wrong reason to go out to a restaurant. And what we are ultimately doing is getting to know these places, getting to see we see their flaws sometimes, but we understand what those flaws are, that they're not deliberate carelessness or
Right.
sloppiness.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's really hard to hit all the time. And an off night is not the end of the world for you and me. And it's just, I think it's just about trying to understand what having a good time is about,
Mm.
and broaden that for more people that are, because there are more people out dining. And hey, people, have some fucking fun. Stop being such so uptight about it.
Yeah.
But the one thing, I called you brilliant on this podcast, and I'll probably do it a million more times. But
Thank you.
for you to recognize Barbacoa Ramirez as what's now a top 20 restaurant, it was a top 10 last year, but in the top 20, you took the time, my friend. What a lot of people go and they just say, they try it, they eat it, and they're like, oh well, I don't see what's so special about this. But you took the time to understand, obviously, what they're doing. I'm sure you saw the eater video
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
on them.
Yeah.
Of course. So you know what they're doing. And to me, what he's doing is equal to what someone's doing at a fine dining restaurant.
Yeah.
But I want to hear what your thoughts on that.
I guess my thought on that the first thing that comes to mind, and this is just total insider baseball for listeners who are not in our
Yeah.
weird little niche world, is that sometimes there is this unnecessary thread of competition. And it's like if somebody gets to something first, you dismiss it because you didn't quote discover it. And even though like food media is so anti Columbusing these days, there's still just this subtle human impulse to like not be like, oh, like that, like yeah, I don't like, I'm not gonna cover that. And so I'll just say like, I can't possibly know the cuisines of Mexico as well as you can. I can't possibly know every corner the way that you invest yourself in knowing it. And so when I read what you have found, what you have not even found is the right word, what you have illuminated, what you have researched, what you have taken pains to understand, to travel with the people, to go with them where they're cooking lambs overnight in a pit. That makes me curious, and I probably wish that I had gone to Barbacoa Ramirez 2 years earlier than I did. But when I went, because I wanted to do my job well, I was like, holy fucking shit, this is amazing. And this dude like really like told us what's up. and not enough of us paid attention. And so when that happens, it's easy to say, like, even though Barbara Cola Ramirez then becomes a part of the LA Times food coverage, it seems right to me to mention you the first time I write about it because you did the work and I found it because you did the work. And to not say so is dishonest.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you know what? I want to say something since we're having this moment, Bill, is that the Bills. We call ourselves the Bills when we run
The
into each
bill.
other, and we are different. I also am not in a competition with people. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I feature on my lists and stories. I feature restaurants that have been written about by LA Taco, by LA Times, by any. I don't care what publication. I'm not even thinking about that. I would say that I've had enough of my firsts that I'm okay. That I know I'll find more too, but I'm not worried about that. Um, I'm.
Yeah.
I mean, not to
Right.
say that I'm not when I have a story and I'm about to publish. Yeah, I don't want to be scooped that week before I publish, and I'm not
Of
saying that
course.
I'm not into that. I'm saying that I'm not competing with people. But you know what it is, Bill? You and I are just a little older, and we're not bedwetting little boys. So we're adults,
Yeah.
and it's
Yep.
it's perfectly cool and grown up to mention someone, and I'm absolutely about that too. So yes, but I mean, besides that, and again, I would say in this new era, LA Times has been so wonderful to me. It's not just you, but other writers have, mentioned me, and when they've gone to some place, and I think that that's the way news is supposed to work. Something is interesting that someone found, and everybody should be writing about it. And I've talked to a young writer as well about that. He was like, "Well, I want to find my places." I'm like, "You don't need to. They're already out there." But you can tell a story. You're writing. You're not finding food. You're writing, and you can write a story that's different. Write a different angle.
Right. Exactly. Go deep. The storytelling, I think, Bill, like you're hitting on it in this conversation that we keep circling about how food media is changing and how restaurant criticism is evolving. And, it did used to be this very utilitarian, this is what the place is, this is what, thumbs up or thumbs down, like it's good or it's not good, or on a 4-star scale it ranks here. And now it's so much more because it's the positive reaction to how the world has changed.
Yeah.
There are no secrets anymore. There are no secrets in the digital world. There's always somebody with this, with a smartphone to record every step of something anywhere in this metro area. But the beautiful thing is not to discover it, but to like go deeper, to be like, actually, this really moved me. Like, this is interesting to me. I've said this many, many times in many places, but my longtime best friend is Lebanese. And because of
Yes.
that, like, I have a deep interest in Arab foodways that I would not have had if I had known her for all these many years. And her like family has really like she is my chosen family. And her family treats me like family. And I
Right.
t- speak terrible rudimentary Lebanese Arabic because I want to be part of them. But that's one way in a world where there aren't as many Arab food writers in America, or people who know as much as I do or care as much as I do. Like, that's one area that I sometimes lean in because I can give you something that maybe you're not otherwise going to get. So I would say for people looking to find their niche, like it's not about finding places that no one else has discovered, but to like tell stories that no one else has told. There's a difference.
Right. No, and we are in an era where there's more people finding places, but there's no storytelling. I mean, in the influencers and the types of stuff that's on TikTok, there's no information.
Yeah, yum yum. Like, mm, that's not storytelling.
The orgasm face, and
Yeah,
that's it, or they'll just oh, they're stirring the stew, and now they're picking up the stew and they're putting it on the plate. It's so there's no storytelling there. And yeah, I mean, I love that, you have, everyone knows that you're big on Middle Eastern cuisine, and that's always going to be, and that's always been part of the LA Times 101 or any restaurant list. We have the huge Armenian community here. We have, down in Orange County, the whole
Yeah.
Middle Eastern scene down there.
Van Nuys has a deep Syrian community too. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's always part of LA story, and it's always good that, again, you're part of this current generation of writers that knows a lot about a lot of cuisines and has deep experience, more than the predecessors that had just they'd gone to culinary school and did a little culinary school, and then everything was fine dining, and they didn't want to know about Mexican cuisine or Salvadoran or Nicaraguense cuisine. And so that's why you're so badass, Bill. Um, so yes, Barbacoa Ramirez is one, and there's also many great Mexican restaurants on your list. And of course, our readers here love talking about Mexican food. And this year, you have some of my personal favorites here, including Ramirez, but Damian, Casa Gishpak, Los Sabrosos al Horno, and then other really strong favorites, Sonora Town, Evil Cooks, Machin, who is a Salvadoran chef doing Mexican American tacos. So I love this lineup, and it does really represent the current, I think, of what's really happening here in LA with all these amazing dynamic Mexican restaurants we have.
100%. And again, like the greatest pleasure is to keep looking, right? Just because something drops off the list
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not good anymore. It just means like it's also important to like keep the energy of the list. It's what keeps people engaged. And yeah, I mean, I'm not like I love Los Sabrosos al Horno. I love those mustardy tacos, and it's just one tiny corner of what makes us great. That's so much to say.
Right. It's the fact that you can only find that in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
I would say that that's one of my favorite experiences. We've never gone together.
we have not, but so we should.
Now that you're out there, man, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go sometime. I'm gonna bring some wine, and we're just gonna sit out there and in the streets there in Cuddy and have some wine and suckling pig tacos.
Yes, please. That sounds great.
What do you think
I
about
think that
that?
sounds perfect. Little Sparza.
LA is a tough city to cover. It's got a lot of stuff going on, and you've been here for how many years now? How many?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
I feel like, people can't say anymore after this list. My friends, this list is amazing, and it's got a little bit of everything. It really feels like it's become this list that's from you and Jen. It recognizes what's happening now, and obviously there are some restaurants that have been around for a long time on the list as well, but it's covering so much ground of LA. It's representing things that we've always been excited about. there's a new Ethiopian restaurant on the list, and I know that having the the graduating class moving aside so that we can talk. I think it's a lot of people think, oh, that's bullshit. Well, they're just trying to, yeah, absolutely, they're trying to make way for the new and for other stories to be told, and and still honoring those restaurants. Those restaurants are all great.
Yes.
There are no slouches on that list. So, Bill, now that you're a big hardcore Angelino, and your food game is fully developed here, when you have people coming from New York, all those New York writers that come out here and they always want to talk about their Mexican food, what are the 3 Mexican restaurants you're going to take them to shut them up?
Ooh, well, I honestly take everyone to Comal. Like, right, basically, I yank them from their gate at LAX, and I take them straight
Straight
there.
to Comal.
Yes. If it's I do, Damian is a fascinating restaurant, and I feel like it's getting better. Like Jen and I, we bumped it up on the list
It
on here, and
is.
I really appreciate, like, I love so much restaurants that keep investing in their own kind of growth and creativity, which sounds obvious, but a lot of places, like, kind of find their place and they sort of plateau. So
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, where else? I'm forever a fan of breakfast at La Casita Mexicana. That one, like, I think it's so sweet, a
A classic.
classic, a sweet place. So I'll say that.
What's your breakfast order there?
Chilaquiles divorciados is my order.
Okay, chilaquiles divorciados. That's your go-to order at La Casita Mexicana. Definitely a longtime classic and a favorite of everyone's. Okay, that's good. And now, which three restaurants from this 101 list that you did with columnist Jen Harris, which ones are the three? What are the three restaurants that are most personal to you? The places you keep going back to, where you bring friends and colleagues, places that scream LA for you and really speak to our culture.
Ooh, okay. Those questions, let's see. I might have four because one of them may not necessarily.
Do four.
You're okay. So I live in Echo Park, and I'm a quarter sheets guy, and it's as much about the greatness of the pizza as it is. I mean, Hannah Ziskin is a literal dessert genius, and I am it's I love her cakes. But 4 days ago, my partner and I were there, and we were, like, screaming over the salted caramel custard pie that she'd come up with that just tasted like so autumnal, so great. Okay, what else that feels personal to me? It's a juicy question.
Yeah.
Sincerely Syria.
Now that we can see you, let's get to know you, Bill Addison.
Right. Oh gosh. So sincerely Syria, just for fantastic shawarma, that I crave, and that I feel like they do it the way that I've had it in Beirut. And the trick at sincerely Syria is to ask them to, like, peel the pita in half before they or the bread in half before they wrap the shawarma. You want the wrapping to be as thin as possible, and they'll crisp it on the griddle. So it's really good. I
Okay.
love that restaurant. I love Camellia. I am just kind of in love with the like that couple, Charles and Courtney. They're some of my favorite restaurateurs
Yeah.
in Atlanta. And Charles, grew up here, and I love the ways that he's always interpreting his Japanese heritage. Subaki, it's so specific in one way, and Camellia kind of leaning into the French that he and Courtney have always loved. I'm just super fond of that restaurant. That one jumps out. Man, like a crazy good burger at Moo's Craft Barbecue,
Oh my
like
God.
be
That
happy.
burger.
That burger, man, in a town filled with burgers, that burger is
The
something else.
thick burger you're talking about, right?
Yes, yes, that's the one.
It's definitely one of my favorites.
And I'm gonna bounce back to the high end as well to say,
Yeah.
for me, I feel like if you're listening and you want to know the two places that I would splurge specifically, like for an anniversary, for a birthday, for another special occasion, my personal two favorites for the high end are Cato, which John Yao, if you don't know of Cato, translates
Yes.
his Taiwanese heritage and his experiences growing up, eating out, eating in the San Gabriel Valley, into a totally unique restaurant in the Row DTLA. So wonderful. And Hayato, which is an impossible reservation. It's 7 seats. It's riffs off of Kaiseki, and yet, that chef Brandon Go is like the greatest. He's like the greatest. I don't know. I think he's the greatest chef in Los Angeles, honestly. But he also
Okay.
he cooks for 7 people a night, 5 nights a week. Like, it's hard to kind of trumpet him when it's so limited in every way. But if you can ever get into Hayato,
No, we can.
yeah, all right. So I'm doing it. Hayato is
Let's
amazing.
no apologies, Bill. No
Thank you.
apologies.
It's dinner time. I'm
Well,
hungry now.
it is it is dinner time. Well, Bill, the 101 list is out. Okay. So we encourage people to read the blurbs, please. Okay. This is about reading. And so you understand, if you're going to bitch about why you don't like this restaurant, at least read, because Bill makes the case. Bill and Jen are making the case about these restaurants. I've had so many people tell me about a review that you've written where they say, well, Bill said this. I go, did you actually read his review? Because I did. And you pointed out, like, okay, I'm going to go back to your horses review.
Mm.
And I remember people were complaining because they didn't have your experience at horses. I go, so when in your review, you said they had to take the cioppino off the menu, and they struggled through several pasta dishes. So to me, when I read inconsistencies in the kitchen, and so to me, that you pointed out what was good about it, but like, people, you need to read. We want to keep reading the written word alive in food writing, and it won't always be in print, and at some point it's going to be all digital and videos, but still, hear what the critics have to say. They're telling a story that's not just a competitive up down 3 stars or versus 2 stars, best versus the worst. It's about telling a story about Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's never just about the headline.
Right.
The headline should bring you in, I hope, but that's it, Bill. We're trying to tell a story.
And you are doing an amazing job. So again, pick up your 101 restaurant list. Subscribe to the LA Times just for the food. It's worth it just for the food section. And now you can catch Bill on the streets. You know what he looks like. Come and say hi.
Yikes. Come say hi. Be nice.
Thanks for being on the podcast, Bill.
Thanks so much for having me, Bill. This was fantastic.
Thank you for tuning in to the Taqueando podcast this week. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode. And please leave us a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts.